So, one of the most prolific serial rapists I have ever met was this political henchman in Bhopal. So, I asked him, has it ever happened that the girl has said no and you did it anyway? And he's like, yeah, so many times. I'm a regular guy. And in his worldview, sexuality was indiscriminate.
It is the law which defines what is rape and not the person who faces a particular kind of sexual aggression which he or she doesn't approve of.
Because it is not a one-time act, but a repeated loop of fear that is etched in the conscience of a woman.
I call big tidbits. You are listening to Tidbits. And what is this tidbit about? But what is rape? Featuring Tara Kaushal. So, is there a definite answer to why men rape, and which definition of rape do you believe in? There are so many socio-cultural, psychological reasons, agendas that add up or don't, and it is extremely layered, which is exactly what author and journalist Tara Kaushal investigates in her book, Why Men Rape.
Early in my research, I met a bunch of boys, college-going boys, in rural Maharashtra. And something one of the boys said to me has really held true throughout my research. Once I told them what my book was about, one of them said, "Problem क्या है ना दीदी कि किसी को पता ही नहीं कि rape क्या है." And it took me a moment, but I realized this was entirely true. They'd all heard of it on the news, but they didn't know what it really meant. And I realized that as women transition from being possessions to being people, there is no understanding of consent and rape, neither legally nor socio-religiously. How can we when we still have forced arranged and child marriages? The law is also evolving. Not long ago, the lust of the man and the chastity of the woman were used as yardsticks to determine rape. And even currently, there are so many instances of mixed legal signals contributing to this muddle. Like, until recently, a woman who had lived with a man for years on end was allowed to claim rape if he didn't marry her. The media projected that the Dastan Goi performer Mahmood Faruqi was acquitted on the basis of the complainant's feeble no, which was actually not the case. And child marriage is illegal but recognized, yet sex with a child wife is rape. And until recently, Section 377 of the IPC criminalized anything but peno-vaginal intercourse, even in consenting adults. So this variation, the varying definitions of what is rape and what is consent, is something I encountered across the spectrum of men I studied.
And coming to the question, what is rape? And you and I, and most of us, should understand that what is not consensual sexually is force, is rape.
So one of the most prolific serial rapists I have ever met was this political henchman in Bhopal. And this man had the most convoluted ideas about rape and consent. So I asked him, has it ever happened that the girl has said no and you did it anyway? And he's like, yeah, so many times. I'm a regular guy. And in his worldview, sexuality was indiscriminate. So when we were talking about the Delhi gang rape, he said that Nirbhaya case, they were both drunk and it was late at night. They were having sex in the bus. So those 4 men also joined in. It was fine until they put that rod in her. Otherwise, it wasn't rape. If the men wanted sex, they should have just done that and left, no. But it's because they put that rod. Otherwise, no one would have cared. For him, it was all about the brutal murder. The gang rape was a non-issue. Consent cannot be given freely and explicitly by a victim or survivor when A. asleep, unconscious, or generally incapacitated by drugs or alcohol. B. mentally or physically incapacitated or ill. C. under the age of 16. Any sexual contact with a minor is statutory rape. Some caveats regarding underage sex, though. To allow for experimentation, not exploitation, it is important to have an age proximity exception. Consensual sex between two 15-year-olds cannot be considered the rape of the girl by the boy. And to exclude consensual sex, when there is a minor age difference between the partners and one is technically under the age of consent from statutory rape, I evoke the US's Romeo and Juliet law. In the US, this minor age difference varies by state, but I think we should pin it at, say, 3 years. Indisputably, marital rape is rape.
So this last point is extremely critical, right? False promise to marry amounting to rape or not. Luring someone on the pretext to get married and then turning away, a matter of fraud, deceit, or winning someone's consent for the want of intercourse. Anyhow.
In most countries, a false promise to marry would not be considered rape, and some legal and armchair experts alike thought it must be removed from Indian law. And so, in January 2019, the Supreme Court ruled that consensual sex cannot be called rape after a relationship ends and the man declines to marry the woman for whatever reason. I don't think it should have been scrapped, and I retain it in my definition of rape. There are many Indias living in many centuries at once. This law was for a time and place where gullible and good sanskari girls and women only had sex for and within marriage. In addition, it could be situated within the purview of an individual rights-based legal system that upholds sexual autonomy that India must aspire to and evolve towards. Assuming that sexual autonomy means anything, it surely includes the right not to have sex with a married man if you don't want to, says the Yale Law School professor Jed Rubenfeld. It surely includes the right not to have sex with someone who isn't interested in a serious relationship. These rights can be violated by lies just as much as they can be by force or threat. So that's the reason a false promise to marry does equal rape.
Now, quickly understanding how critical is consent, right? And so on the basis of how we understand consent, what is cool, can be rough, can be sexy, can be experimental and wild, as long as it involves consenting partners. But if there is restraint, a hesitation, and just something that is a big no, is a big no.
So when you apply the principles of individual rights and sexual autonomy, everything becomes pretty crystal clear about what is rape and what is consent. So marital rape, for instance, is rape because a woman is not a possession. Also, anything and everything between consenting adults is perfectly natural and normal. So whether it is rough or anal or whatever, it's all okay and it's all kosher and it's all cool as long as there is free and affirmative consent.
It's time I find another hot topic to make you uncomfortable with. Catch the Tidbits podcast on Hauterfly every Wednesday.
This podcast is a Folk Media production.